Alien Confidential, hosted by Tony Topping. He's the Paranormal 007, you know, and I am his Miss Moneypenny.
Alien Confidential, Tony Topping. I'm back again. And remember, on this show, the opinions expressed are not necessarily the opinions of Access Radio Northwest, nor the host. And it should be classed as entertainment purposes only. And our special guest is Carol Noonan. And she is a contact experiencer. Oh, heck, she is. And we're going to get, I think, a lot of information out of her. We're going to see how it all goes. She has a fascinating autobiography that she'd sent me. She's gone through a traumatic childhood, neglect, poverty, and abuse. She's been bullied at school. She had an alcoholic mother and was sexually abused as well. But it all turned around for her, according to this story, due to the intervention of aliens. And I hope to have a fascinating journey into her experiences. Hello, Carol. Hello. Welcome to Alien Confidential.
Hello, Tony. I'm very excited to be here.
Gosh. Yeah, well, you're very welcome to be here. And normally I was just talking before the program. A friend of mine, I've not heard from him for a while. I have recently been in contact with him, called Joseph McMoneagle. Have you heard of him?
No.
Okay, well, Joseph McMoneagle was one of the top US remote viewers. He was known as Remote Viewer 01. In other words, he could subconsciously engage targets at a distance using the power of his mind and retrieve information back. The Russians were aware that he'd remote viewed a top secret submarine base that nobody was meant to know about, and he was rewarded the Legion of Merit for unorthodox gathering of information via the intelligence, via spying. So he was awarded an award there. But it's interesting in his autobiography, Carol, that he was subjected to abuse. He had an alcoholic parents. He had a hell of a time with it. And as we can see from your autobiography, you appear to have had one hell of a time with your childhood. And as Joe said in his autobiography, there seems to be a connection between higher psychic functioning and childhood abuse. In fact, from what I'm looking at here, Carol, what you've been through and your contact experiences, you would possibly be classed as an exceptional human experiencer, or EHE, which is something I'll look at in another show. We'll get her on, a lady called Rhea H. White. So anyway, I've droned on enough. Without further ado, hello, Carol.
Hi, Tony.
Okay, good evening to you. Now, let's get to the nitty-gritty. Let's start with the traumatic childhood that led to all these psychic goings-on and alien contact. How did that begin for you?
Well, I was born into what I describe as hell, and it was hell for me. I was born into a very dysfunctional family. My mum was Irish. I was born in South Africa, and she had separated from her husband and decided to move back to Ireland. So we were there for about a year or two. And then we moved to London. We moved to Hackney. And so I just had a horrendous childhood, a lot of poverty, neglect. My mum was an alcoholic, so she wasn't able to care for herself, let alone any of her children. And she'd been an alcoholic since she was in her early 20s. So I had just a horrendous time, bullied at school, huge amount of poverty. And I don't even think it was just poverty. It was also neglect. I was half starved, where I couldn't actually go to the toilet. And my mum took me to the doctor, and he looked at her and he looked at me and he looked at her in a very kind of emotional way. I always remember it as kind of one of those moments that just stay with you forever. And the look in his eye, and he turned back to her and he said, "You need to feed her." And I kind of went cold and realized kind of the gravity of my mum's state of being. So So yeah, I was raped at the age of 12 by my cousin. Had So during the times of abuse, what would happen is I would leave my body and connect with the Pleiadians. And my earliest memory of doing this is when I was 8 and I left my body and I connected with the Pleiadians. And I'd forgotten for a number of years what had actually happened, because I'd always remembered the abuse and him laying on top of me, but I'd forgotten for a number of years that I actually left my body and connected to the Pleiadians, or they connected to me.
Tell me, Carol, what does the in that moment of setting the abuse aside? Because my God, I'm left speechless with what you've just told me, actually, and it gets me so angry, being a victim of abuse myself. But saying that, when you went into contact with the Pleiadians, what did they look like?
I don't know if I can actually remember at that age seeing them, but I know what they look like now. It was
So what do they look like now? Yeah, what do they look like, love? I think just so if we're in the narrative, just take us to what they look like, and then we'll go back to that bit again. Yeah.
Okay. So they are tall, blonde,
Right.
blue-eyed, very angular features, thin. I always get a sense of blue around them. It's mostly Ashtar that I actually talk to, and a huge love, a feeling of love times 1,000. So a very strong feeling of love with when they come in, but very tall, blonde, blue-eyed, kind of typical to the images you would see on the internet.
And just clarify for the listeners, what is the Ashtar?
Ashtar is the commander of the Pleiadians. He's well known. But when I consciously began channeling them in 2009/2010, I could see him in my mind's eye, because I've been a medium for a long time. So when I work with spirit, I see them in my mind's eye most of the time. So when the Pleiadians showed up for me in 2009/2010, I saw Ashtar behind me, and he was communicating with me telepathically, but I saw them as well. So I saw him at the front, and then behind him, there were other Pleiadians who I didn't see as clearly, but I saw him very clearly. And he was behind me, slightly to my left, and then behind him, there was a lot of other Pleiadians.
In terms of Ashtar, Carol, so we've gone going back to your childhood. You can't remember the simulation. You can't. When was your first meeting with this being called Ashtar? Then
it would have been, I believe, it would have been when I was 8, when I was out of my body.
Right.
But I don't come from here, Tony, and I've done a lot of shamanic work, shamanic journeying, where I've seen my past, I've seen where I come from, I've seen who I am, the majority of who I am and where I come from and why I'm here. And I believe I'm Pleiadian. So my past lives would have, I come from the Pleiades, as one place in the universe that I come from. Like many star seeds, like yourself, we don't come from here. We know we don't come from here. So with regards to your question, when did I first connect with Ashtar? Probably in past life.
To get to the core of it, if I may be so, please don't take this the wrong way. I'm going to make a crucial point here. I'm a contact experiencer myself. I've come across ETs in my experiences. I'm writing a book about it. But what is I don't want you to take this the wrong way, Carol.
Okay.
What is the difference between finding a foundation of your experiences with these beings as compared to a widely used term, Ashtar, that appears to be everywhere and in all New Age books. Am I wrong or am I right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but where is the foundation of your experiences with them rather than something that's written and well known? Do you get where I'm coming from?
I absolutely do, and I'm so
You
glad
do?
I do,
Right.
absolutely, Tony. And I'm so glad you've asked that question because that is hugely important.
I didn't want to offend you, Carol.
No.
I just wanted to drill down, yeah?
Yeah, not at all, darling. I'm so glad you asked that question.
Right.
So for me, this goes back to and I will answer that question. But first,
Okay.
I need to kind of give a bit of foundation of my childhood.
Oh, carry on. We're all ears.
Okay, great. Thanks, Tony. So I'll explain the foundation. You might have to jog my memory with that question.
All right.
But I will go into it. So if I get to go into it, please bring me back to it. So my childhood was very abusive, a lot of poverty, rape, everything rolled into one at a very young age. When I was 12, I wanted to commit suicide. I didn't want to be here anymore. I was done. I'd had enough. And I was only 12, and it wasn't a cry for help. It wasn't any of that. I was in my room. I was deciding on taking tablets. This is after a huge amount of abuse by my stepfather, and I was just in a lot of emotional pain. I was laying on my bed. I was crying my heart out, and I just wanted out. And I was deciding on taking tablets. The next thing I didn't even have a bed. I was lying on a mattress on the floor. Right. And the next thing I knew, I was in the right-hand corner of the ceiling looking down on my body. And Jesus came to me. And I'm not religious, but I will go into that as well. Jesus came to me and took me on a very long journey for about 3 or 4 hours. And bearing it, and so he showed me my karma, my childhood, my situation from a higher perspective. When he understood that I got it on a soul level, he then moved on to some of the bigger aspects of humanity and the universe.
For the listeners, Carol, what did you get at a soul level?
I understood that, which is hard for some people to hear or accept, but I understood that everything I had experienced was meant to be. So all of the horrendous atrocities that I had experienced, I was meant to experience for my spiritual growth. Right. And I got it. I understood it on a soul level, even without words. I saw it. I felt it. In my cells, I could feel it. I understood it on a very deep level. And so I have forgiven them because I know that it was for my growth. Now, I know that's very hard for some people to believe, or to understand, but that is my belief. And when I came back from the journey, I was blissful, totally blissful for about 3 or 4 weeks until that gradually ebbed away. And I knew the experience was real. I knew it was real because of the effect it had on me from wanting to commit, from being on the verge of committing suicide, minutes away from taking tablets, to waking up, to being in this blissful state, absolute bliss.
Yes, I know it. I do know it, Carol. My question is, you say Jesus came to you. You sure it was him, or was it the aliens doing a simulation so that your mind could handle it? A bit like the film Contact. Jodie Foster's on the character portrayed by that actress. Yeah. Is on a beach and she meets her dad, and the alien says, "We've taken this form of looking like your dad, so it would be easier for you to handle."
Yeah.
Do you think that's what was going on?
No, but it's an interesting question. It's something I'd like to go into a little bit because.
Carry on, love.
I do believe that my experience was real. And because of that experience that I never told anyone until 2004, actually,
Mhm.
2004.
Mhm.
And I'm 46 now, 47 next month. But
Right.
I had never told anyone that experience. I knew it was real. Never told my family, never told anyone. Um, I don't believe anything personally. I don't believe anything unless I experience something. So, and that relates to your question about Ashtar.
Mhm.
I don't read any um, other books by channelers or any other information. I like to get it directly from the horse's mouth. And I'm one of those people that I don't believe anything unless I experience it.
Mm.
So with your question about Jesus and the was he an ET, or I now believe that Jesus was Pleiadian. I'm absolutely believe it because of my childhood, because of the experiences I had with the Pleiadians, but also the experience I had with Jesus. And and they have told me that he was Pleiadian.
Mhm.
And, given what I've been told by the Pleiadians and my experience, I believe that he was Pleiadian energy. So,
Yeah. So yeah.
yeah,
So you actually, but you do believe that he walked the earth as well, as the incarnation of Jesus. There is a lot of evidence to suggest that he was a real guy. I know of a friend of mine who's a lecturer at Liverpool University who says real guy. Former police officer, can't remember his name, wrote a book about the evidence to do with Jesus. I think it was called The Case for Christianity or something like that. It's a very good read. Real guy. So we've got this thing gearing up that there's evidence to suggest that this man existed. And I think what you're saying, Carol, is that he was Palladian. Is that correct?
yes, I think he was a real man, for want of a better word, a real
Yeah.
a real being, a light being on Earth that walked this Earth, that was
What
Pleiadian.
what evidence did these beings give you of that? You said that there was evidence. What evidence was there? Just for the listeners, I'm interested to know.
Did I say there was evidence? I don't
You did.
understand that. What evidence? Do you mean
Yeah.
physical evidence or?
You said it. You said in a sentence that there was evidence from the Palladians that Jesus was a Palladian.
Well,
So I was asking, what did they show you to give you that impression that he was a Palladian?
they showed me, Tony. They showed me he was Pleiadian. Um, he has Pleiadian energy.
But for the listeners, he has Palladian energy. What then would be Palladian energy? What would can you describe? Don't underplay yourself. But for the listeners, what is Palladian energy? They said he was Palladian. Well, what evidence did they give you that he was Palladian? Have they just said, "Oh, Carol, believe us, he was a Palladian"?
No, I've seen him as Pleiadian. I've seen him with the energy of the Pleiadians, and the energy of the Pleiadians is very distinctive. I mean, it's
Right.
hugely distinctive. There's
Yes.
a blue aura. There's a huge, an immense feeling of love with them, and he has the same. He has the same energy.
Right.
So I don't distinguish between any longer. Distinguish between him and the Pleiadians. But if you're asking for like physical evidence, I
No.
don't have any of that. I mean, there's no
No.
physical evidence of.
There wouldn't be any physical evidence, Carol. I know that. For example, I've asked for physical evidence during the course of my experiences, and they've turned around and said we can't do that. We don't want to do that. Although listeners might be interested to know of a book called Hair of the Alien, whereby a New Zealander called Peter Kahori awoke from sleep to discover a hair in the wrong place where it shouldn't be on him. His wife is brunette, but this was blonde. And he went and had it analysed. And to cut a long story short, it turns out that the hair was not human. They forensically analysed the DNA, and it had certain characteristics that were absolutely incredible, including some sort of chromosome missing from the hair that prevents. We have this chromosome, if I've got this right, it causes some sort of sexual infection or diseases type thing, but that chromosome was missing from their DNA, and it's a fascinating read. And it's called Hair of the Alien. But I think in the course of my experiences, Carol, aliens or these people from other worlds, which are real, and we are being lied to about it, can be as devious on a mass scale. They can be as devious as human beings. But why do you think, Carol, from your point of view with dealing all this, why do you think there's a UFO cover-up?
Well, to me, it's very obvious, Tony. I mean, when I began channeling the Pleiadians, consciously channeling the Pleiadians in 2009, let me go back to when I was 12, because my mum was watching the news, and this is just to give some foundation of my experiences and where I'm coming from. So my mum was watching the news. I walked into the lounge, and I was held in this vortex of energy where I couldn't move. And I've had it many times over my lifetime. And I was held in this vortex of energy where I couldn't move. The news was on, and I looked directly at the news, and it was the Sphinx that was on the news.
Right.
And I was instantly downloaded with information. And I was being shown, I didn't know where it was coming from at the time because I was only 12. But I was shown the Sphinx, and I was shown I think it was the right paw as you look head on at it. So the right paw as you look head on at it. If you're looking at an aerial view, it would, of course, be the left paw. But I was shown steps going down. I was shown a secret chamber or an area or a chamber or a secret place beneath the steps of the underground of the paw of the Sphinx. So, and I was shown certain other information about Egypt. And I was shown that later on I was shown that the vast area of tunnels beneath Egypt and the pyramids. So, I mean, it's such a huge question what you're asking, because when I began channeling them in 2009 consciously, I was being downloaded huge amounts of information on a daily basis.
Right.
I was only able to be in that space because of where I was living. I was living in Louisburg, which is a very remote part of Ireland, west coast of Ireland, which is literally on the beach. So I had nothing else going on. I didn't have any distractions. I was single, no kids, no man, no family. I actually just left my husband. I just separated from my husband, and I just wanted time out to heal. So I began to channel them.
Yes.
And one of the things...
Are these Pleiadians, Carol, that you're channeling?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Got that. Go on.
And one of the things they showed me... I mean, this is downloads of information over months and months on a daily basis. So they've given me books and books of information. I've written one, but one of the things they showed me, which is huge, is that we are not alone. We've never been alone. We don't come from here. We've been lied to on a mass scale. Governments are well aware that of aliens and UFOs and ETs and the whole shebang. We are lied to on a mass scale. There is a huge cover-up. At the head of the what do you want to call them? The cabal or the negative black cats. They are negative ETs that are running the show at the top of the pyramid, so to speak, and that we are slaves and we are lied to on a mass scale, and everything we know is a lie. Our schooling, our governments, our history, our science, our technology, all of it is a lie. And we are far advanced in our technology, in our science, in our mathematics, and it's being kept from us. It's being hidden from us. So that kind of relates to what's happening on Earth at the moment with the Great Ascension, where everything is...
Why do you think it's being kept from us, Carol?
Because we are slaves for them. We are slaves for them, and it's to do with Atlantis when negative ET energy came in and overthrew Atlanteans. The Earth shifted. The Earth was knocked off its axis deliberately, I believe, and our DNA was dumbed down, was manipulated, was changed, and everything that we're going through now on Earth is part of the ascension, but it's also a reversal of Atlantis, a reversal of what happened at Atlantis. So that means the Earth is shifting back onto her natural axis, and our DNA is naturally changing back to her original blueprint, which I've recently been told was actually 13 strands of DNA, not 12.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I heard a rumor like that as well. That it's for. I actually heard a rumor that we came from Lumeria.
Yes, I believe.
Have you heard? Yeah.
Yeah, see, the thing with me, Tony, is, someone could tell me it was a storm outside, and I wouldn't believe them. I would need to go and see, is that true?
Yeah.
Because that's just, I don't know why, but that's the type of person I am. So someone could tell me, well, UFOs are real. Unless I experience something, I'm on the fence. So I'm sorry, what was your question, Tony?
My question was regarding, actually, it wasn't a question. I was gonna move into the next phase of it. I was asking why there was a UFO cover up. I was asking, was your thing with Jesus to do with an alien type simulation? The Ashtar one we've already answered. What I was interested in is that you said during the course of emails with me before you appeared on the show that you've got a book that's banned, and I'm interested to know, and the opinions expressed here may not be the opinions of myself or the radio station, but I am interested to know what this banned book is about. Why did they ban it? What is in it that they would ban it on? There has to be something in it, Carol, that you've written for them to do that.
Well, the book is based on events in 2020. Let me put it that way.
Right.
And I was downloaded with a lot of information. Some of it I'm not allowed to say on because some of it I'm not allowed to say, Tony, on this show.
Well, tell me, what is equally fascinating about your saga is that you are, of course, a psychic. And you've had visions. I've had visions in the course of my experiences that no man should see. But I'm intrigued to know about your visions. What type of your visions, from what I'm looking at, or what I've read and what I've seen, tend to predict the kind of the future, as it were. So I'm wondering, what type of psychic visions have you had because of the experiences that you have lived through?
Well, I've two answers for that, Tony, and they might be a bit longer than normal because I really want to go in depth with it. But
go.
Thank you, darling. So the first thing I want to really stress and say is that people like you and me, UFO experiencers and contactees and abductees and starseeds and light workers and even Reiki healers, there's so many categories we fall under. Basically, what I've been shown, what I believe, what I know, is that we have these experiences to wake us up, because we're not from here. We don't come from here. We come, what I call, from the outside in. So we've come here with these abilities, with these experiences, to wake ourselves up so that we can step forward into a public platform, a public domain, to help others, to wake others up. So our experiences, our abilities, our energy is different to what, quote, normal people. So when we have, our experiences are outside of the norm because we're not from here. We're not contained to the, I guess for want of a better explanation, you could say that our DNA is closer to our original DNA than Joe down the road.
Yes.
So we have these experiences. One of the experiences I've had recently, And I keep getting it over and over again. And I'm so glad you asked, Tony, because I had it a few nights ago. And I've been meaning to do like a video update, an emergency call out on it, because I keep seeing a tsunami coming in. In previous dreams, I've seen it coming in from the west coast of Ireland, into the west coast of Ireland, and coming up towards Scotland and kind of drizzling off at the tip of Scotland. I've seen it come in towards Devon and Cornwall and kind of come across the coastline. When I had it the other day, I saw it coming from the west towards Portsmouth. So, and it was huge. I mean, it was really huge, and it was terrifying. And I was in the dream. I wasn't observing it from an aerial view. I was in it. I was watching it come towards me.
Right.
And I believe I get shown these real dreams because I've been having them since I was a child.
Yeah.
I believe I get shown them to share the information, not to put fear into people, but simply to share the information so that people can prepare. Do
you think your knowledge of it, Carol, could alter the future? Do you think that knowledge of it being in existence could actually alter it to prevent it from happening?
Yes, I believe so, Tony.
Mm-hmm.
I do.
Mm-hmm.
I do. Mm-hmm. Because I've looking back on some of the dreams I've had, some of the visions of prophetic visions, when they have occurred, they haven't been as bad as I've seen them to be in the dream.
Yes. So, right. A few years ago, and I talk about it in my book. An intervention occurred by these, I believe, anyway, in my humble opinion. An intervention occurred by these ETs to intercept what you're talking about. I saw it with my own eyes. They even said what they were doing. It was absolutely bloody unbelievable. So I'm wondering, in terms of seeing all this, do you think that ETs can and will intervene on such matters? Do you think do you think that happens?
I do believe so, because absolutely, Tony, because I also believe that some of these natural disasters are actually created by negative ET energy.
Right.
So, right. And then there is a battle between light and dark, between positive and negative ET energy. And I've seen them. I've seen I've seen large UFOs in the sky that are hidden in the clouds. So they do hide purposely, and this is positive. This is positive. UFOs. So they do hide purposely because they don't always want to be seen.
Yes. Have you ever filmed any, Carol?
I don't believe I have.
No.
I don't think I have.
Have you seen them flying over you at all?
Yes, I've had quite a few experiences, Tony. I've seen them physically from a distance flying.
What did they look like?
Well, this was in the night sky, so I saw movement in the night sky, which was in a rhythmic pattern.
Yes.
Kind of in I think it was a triangular pattern.
Right.
And I had, I was with someone at the time, and we were laying down. This was actually in the Holy Island. This is in my book.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Well, the Pleiadian Child book, not the other one. This monk took me outside, and we were laying down, and it was nighttime. And
as in Holy Island, Newcastle?
No, Holy Island in Scotland.
Holy Island, Scotland, Berwick upon Tweed way?
It's west of Glasgow.
West of Glasgow.
Yeah,
I'm confused. Is it? Just get me bearings, Carol. Is it the Holy Island I went to, where I had a UFO incident? Is the one where there's a little kind of bridge that you can climb up if the tide comes in? Is that the same place?
I don't think so, Tony. I think because there's two Holy Islands in the UK.
Is there? I didn't know that. You're educating me there, Cal. You must have gone to the other one then. I went to the one where I was giving a talk. And before I give a talk, there's actually a photograph of the UFO. Before I gave a talk, I took a photograph of the spectacular view before me, and sure enough, in that photo was an actual UFO in the shot. I'm putting it in my book. Actual UFO appears, and there it is before I'd gone in to give a talk. It was a plasma. I do believe it to be a plasma-type UFO of the similar type that was seen in Hesdalen, that are seen in Hesdalen in Norway. And oddly enough, Carol, yes, I did the same thing. I laid on the ground with somebody, and we were near a church when it happened. And we were overlooking the sea, and the UFO actually came in. But anyway, carry on with your story. So you're at Holy Island.
Yeah, which is in Scotland. It's just off the Isle of Arran in Scotland.
Right.
So it's a very remote island. It's a tiny island off a big island.
Yeah.
And it was nighttime, and I lived there for about 2 years as a volunteer on a Buddhist retreat centre.
Wow.
But yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I was really able to open myself up psychically and spiritually for a couple of years without any modern day distractions. So,
okay, what was the fundamental thing? I mean, looking at your autobiography, Carol, you've got the abuse that happened. My God, that's something else. You've got all that happened to you there. What is the and you've got what I would describe as a scenario around you of paranormal events where you don't know whether you're coming or going. You would be classed as like an exceptional human experiencer, or EHE, to coin the phrase that the American kind of Stargate project looked at.
Yeah.
But what I'm interested to know is, what did you learn fundamentally with all this paranormal chaos about you on a Buddhist retreat? What did you learn? What was the yardstick?
I learnt that I wasn't normal. I learnt that I was different. I learnt that it was okay to be different, because and I learnt to be quiet. I learnt to be still. I learnt to watch my thoughts. I learned meditation. I learned to focus my mind. I learned many things there in stillness, in peace. I learned to let go of my anger from my childhood. I learned to many things, Tony. Many things.
Yeah, of course. And back to the monk now. After that little diversion, back to the monk. I understand you said there was some monk, you were laying down on the ground, and you were gonna. Is that right? And we were gonna get to the point of seeing a UFO. Yeah.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Yes, there was a young monk that had come over from Nepal, and he very much kept himself to himself. So it was very unusual for him to say, "Come on, Carol, let's go outside and lay down and just look at the stars." Yeah. And this obviously was nothing sexual. It was just unusual that he would do that. So I thought, okay, I'll go with it. So we went outside and we lay down on the ground and we looked at the stars. And this is in my book, The Pleiadian Child. And we saw movement. We saw an object, which was a UFO, and it moved in a rhythmic pattern. So it had shape to the pattern. I think it was a triangle it was moving in. And he saw it as well. And we actually never spoke of it, but I looked at him and he looked at me, and we didn't need to say anything, but we both witnessed it. And it was just an amazing time. Yeah. And so that's one that comes to mind.
Okay. What was it like, Carol, coming back from the Buddhist retreat into society in general then for you?
I felt like an orange in a bunch of bananas.
Right. You just didn't fit in.
Yeah, I've never fitted in, Tony. I'm not from here. My energy is different.
And were your senses enhanced, Carol? I mean, did you find that you could actually get bursts of what people were thinking, or all that kind of thing happening to you? Were you hearing kind of differently?
Well, I've had that since I was a child. I've always had. Right. There's a section in it about it in my book. Right. So I've always had times in my childhood where I was able to read people's thoughts and actually hear what they were thinking. So I kind of grew up with that. I grew up being kind of an oddball, having psychic experiences and knowing what people were thinking, but actually hearing their thoughts in my mind, which is more on a telepathic level. So and growing up with spirit and the Pleiadians and Jesus and my guides, and so I found this year actually that my senses have been upgraded or increased or become more. Yes. And this is on a huge level. So I'm very sensitive these days to what's the energy around me. So I could be in a dark room, which would be completely black, and I would know if there was energy in the room with me or not.
Yes. Yeah. No. I understand it. And just tell me, from the Holy Island incident with the UFO, did you say that you had other UFO incidents? Could you tell a bit more about that? That you're actually seeing these UFOs? Am I correct?
Yes, I have. Well, I've seen them in my mind's eye.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have. Well, I have seen things that what I believe are UFOs. In the night sky and movement, and so there's been more. I haven't never seen anything up close in detail where I can describe the lights or the shape or the metal or the shine, or I've never had anything that close. Yeah, and it's mostly been at night.
Yeah. So basically, for the listeners, basically what Carol's saying is that that was an interesting remark what you said, Carol, about the fact that you see them in your mind. Now the listeners may wonder, well, what the hell's she going on about, the crazy woman? She sees them in her mind. What, she sees UFOs in her mind? What's that all about? Well, for the listeners, although I think my listeners are an educated lot, but basically Carol is receiving like an information channel. That phrase is coined by the Russian remote viewers information channel. They'd got it pretty spot on. So in America, they call a remote viewer a remote viewer, but the Russians called them an information channel operator. And that's a very wise word to use. And by the way, I'm no fan of Russia and the way it conducts itself. But what it is that the information channel operator means precisely that. You are a walking processor of information. I would suggest that Jesus, for example, was a processor of higher ordered information. He was probably processing at many dimensions from our three-dimensional reality. And so I would say somebody like Carol's brain is probably processing information at a different level that is not discussed about in our society, that is actually frowned upon and covered up. So she would be able to decode seeing a UFO quite easily. She could be walking down the street quite wide awake, but there may be a vision, am I right, Carol, that will suddenly come into your head while you're awake. You don't even have to have your eyes closed. It'll just be there. Boom, there it is, gone. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I feel that my childhood was a training course in spiritual abilities, like mediumship and telepathic, the dream state, and being able to go different places in the dream state, and awareness and telepathy. And so I'm when I sit down and do readings, I go into an altered state. And because of my training, because of my mediumship training and my shamanic training, I'm well able these days to go into an altered state. And I can do that when I'm giving readings, but I can also do it anywhere. So I could do it when I'm walking along the road and see things that are not in this reality. In this physical,
that would probably mean, Carol, sorry to interrupt you, but that would probably mean that you have a what I would class from my perspective as an eighth ability, not just a sixth sense, but an eighth sense. And that would possibly mean, would I be right in saying, as I drill down into what your experiences are all about, that those who have departed from this world, you could possibly hear on another wavelength? For example, I was walking through Liverpool Lime Street a few years ago, and I heard somebody literally, as if they were walking past me, say, "I've haunted this station for ages." just like that. I couldn't believe what I heard at first.
Yeah.
And then there was another incident, a hotel in Victoria I was staying in, where I was getting heightened clairaudience signals. We'll call them signals, like a radio, just to put it simply. And I was getting something of a guy, the poor man, who'd actually, what's the word I'm looking for? He gave me his name and the fact that he'd chucked himself in front of a tube train at, where was it now? The Olympics, Stratford, I think it was.
Okay.
And sure enough, I just had to dig around to discover that information was correct, and I find it a sacred ability. But it's not about me, it's about you. And I'm wondering, Carol, do you have those type of incidents? Has that happened to you?
I do, Tony, and I do question them. I question the ones that are really bizarre and unusual, with strange messages, or messages that are not like Auntie Nelly.
Tell the listeners more. We want to know. Go. Come on, tell more. Come on, Carol.
Okay. So I've had unusual messages. So for example, I had one message once where I heard, in my mind's eye, I heard Spirit say to me, and I believe it was my guide, but they said, beware of the cockroaches.
Uh-huh.
And I dismissed it, Tony. I said, would you ever go away? That is crazy. Beware of the cockroaches. I was living in Scotland at the time, in Edinburgh. And anyway, and so I dismissed it, and I wish I hadn't. But a couple of weeks later, I was visiting my ex-husband. And I'm still legally married, by the way, but I was visiting what I call my ex-husband. And he was from Nepal. He was Tibetan from Nepal, and he must have gone to visit in Nepal, because when I went to visit him in London, his flat was filled with cockroaches. So,
good Lord.
Yeah, I mean, well, there was an area behind the cooker, because obviously with the heat of the cooker, so the whole wall behind the cooker was filled with like a square of cockroaches. And well, you know, Nepal has a lot of cockroaches. So they what happens is they get into the luggage, and that's how we accidentally transport them from country to country.
Right. Right.
So that was one message. But I mean, I've had other messages over the years where I've personally thought that is crazy, you know, and it turns out not so crazy. It turns out to be true. So I think when, you know, when you really get into this stuff, there's a lot of people, this is kind of veering into mental health, because a lot of people, in my understanding, are misdiagnosed as being schizophrenic, because they're hearing negative spirits, they're hearing negative voices.
Yeah.
And in my understanding, you've got two forms of mediums. You've got mediums that work in the light, and you've got mediums that are labeled or diagnosed as schizophrenic. And in my understanding, now this is my own personal belief, there is no such thing as schizophrenic. There's no such thing. It's just that negative spirit has latched on to these vulnerable people who have no understanding of mediumship or how spirit works. I call them sometimes I call them hitchhikers, where negative spirit latches on, and that's kind of veering into, and then it can cause mental health, because, but in my
this is true. But it's not as, that environment that you're speaking of, Carol, is not as what's the word I'm looking for? Is not as, I don't know where to begin. It's very angels and demons. You know, I'm a veteran of high strange experiences, and I remember one incident. Just bear with me; it's leading up to a question. There was one incident where I do have strange abilities, I have to say. I wouldn't even profess to call myself cyber. I've had high strange stuff going on, and there was one situation in the kitchen a few months ago, actually, where I heard the voice of my mother coming in with the hello Anthony love, it's your mum, and that's what I thought was a ghostly presence. But there was something else present in the room, that's all I can describe it as, that showed me the true nature of what that was. And it was astounding, because it wasn't my mother. And this brings me to the point of, Carol, in the course of your experiences, have you had any situations like that where something presents itself to be, let us say, nice or familiar to you, but in fact it's entirely something else?
Yes, I think I think most of us have, Tony. You know,
Yeah.
those of us who are genuine, I think we do get those experiences where energy, because energy can and does disguise itself as something that it's not.
Yes.
So you could get a demon disguising itself as an angel, and or various levels or degrees of that. So yeah, energy can and does disguise itself as energy that is not. So as channels, as mediums, as psychics, as healers, we have to be extremely careful and to thoroughly check out the energies that are working with us and the energies that we are channeling.
What is your most strangest experience that you've had? I mean, that's a bit oxymoron, really. But what is the most strangest experience you've had that you can tell our listeners where they would all go, "Wow"? Have you got one?
Wow, I've got so many of them. I don't know where to start.
Come on, Carol, pick one. Go on.
If I had to pick one, what would it be? What, a positive or a negative?
Do a positive, please.
Positive, okay. A positive one, I guess one of them would be, I was living in Edinburgh at the time, and I'd fallen asleep, and I was in an altered state, and I'd fallen asleep. I was reading Saya Baba books at the time, and I was very much in an altered state, and I could smell his sage, I think it was, or incense, his incense, and I really felt him around me.
Right.
And I was in between being asleep and awake, so I was in an altered state. And then I had that experience with him. I could see him in the room, and I could smell the incense. And then I gradually drifted off to sleep, and I dreamt of a cat I used to have called Crunchy, because she was a ginger colour. She was a beautiful, big, fat ginger cat, and she was just beautiful in personality and looks. And she was a big softie, wouldn't hurt a fly. And I dreamt of her. And when I woke up, and she was ginger, she was very distinct ginger. And when I woke up, there was actually a hair. And this is funny because of what you were talking about earlier, but there was actually a hair of her next to me when I woke up. Now, I have dark brown hair naturally, but there was no one else in the room. There was no one else in the flat. There was no possible explanation for this to happen, other than she had really been there. She had really come to say hello, and she was in spirit. So that's one of the I guess one of the nicest I've had. Yeah. Because when I woke up and I saw her ginger hair next to me, I just thought, wow, that's really beautiful.
Yeah. You believe that pets have a spirit, then, Carol? I take it on that one. You've had these incidents with animals. You believe that to be true?
Oh yes, absolutely, Tony. Absolutely, and even beyond that, because everything that has, everything that grows, everything that has life force, everything that has energy, from the earth to plants to nature to everything.
Yes.
Rocks, have energy.
Yeah.
Have energy.
Yes. Yes, of course it does. It has an energy to it. And tell us, Carol, about your book, The Pleiadian Child. What is that all about then?
Well, it's in 3 sections. I began to write it in 2009 when I began to channel, because it was my way of recording the information from the Pleiadians.
Yes.
So it's in 3 sections. The first section is my childhood.
Right.
The second section is my channeled information directly from the Pleiadians.
Right.
And the third section is where I was at the time emotionally and how I'd moved forward. So yeah.
How have you moved forward, Carol? Because that's quite a storm you're talking about. And the fact is, I think you're such an interesting guest. I want you on for part 2. I've decided, because I think it's just interesting. You're interesting to listen to. So how have you moved forward then in your book? What's moving forward about for you in view of all this absolute hell that you've been through?
Forgiveness, letting go.
Yeah.
I had a saying many years ago that I always used to say to myself as a child, and I never finished it, but it went something like, I will be damned if I let you. And I never quite finished the sentence. But I will be damned if I let you
Right.
ruin the rest of my life or affects. I will not be a statistic, basically. I will not let you control my life because of the abuse. I will overcome.
Yes. How close have you been to feeling suicidal then, Carol, because of all that's gone on? Has this been a saviour in some way to you, knowing this information?
Yes, I think my early childhood, and because I was on the verge of 5 minutes away from committing suicide when I was 12.
Yeah.
And I think that experience with Jesus, I think I know there's something more. I know there's something more. I know I'm meant to be here. I know I have a purpose, a journey, a mission, like you and many others listening. And I'm here for a reason. I'm here for a purpose. And it may be painful. It may be horrendous. But this too shall pass. This too shall pass. It's something that actually Jesus used to say to me when I was younger. This too shall pass. And to know that whatever people are going through at the moment, it can change in a moment. It can change in a second. Time is, our experiences are beyond us sometimes. And
yes, I agree.
Sometimes we see, it seems to us that we have no control over them. Yes. What we do have control of is our mind and how we react. So if we can learn meditation and how to watch our thoughts and to step back and sometimes even observe ourselves or observe our emotions and how we're feeling, to nurture ourselves, to love ourselves, to stop beating ourselves up with a piece of stick or a piece of wood, to be kind to ourselves, to give ourselves a break, to stop the conditioned mind where we're taught to beat ourselves up. We're taught that we're not good enough, that we're not pretty enough, that we're not clever enough, that we're not enough of anything. And to step back from that and look at the bigger picture and go internal, go inside, go into meditation, go inward and see how beautiful we are, how divine, how unique, how special, how beautiful and divine and powerful we really are. And to step away from the conditioned mind and to step into an altered state and see your true self, see your true soul, step into your Iman. I think Sasha Stone calls it Iman. Step into yourself, step into your heart energy.
Yes, that's very true. And tell me one thing as well, Carol. What was the latest paranormal experience you've had? Just for the listeners, what was it?
The latest one actually was 3 or 4 days ago. It was the dream of one of the dreams I've had of the tsunami hitting the west coast of the UK.
Right.
And the message I got, one of the messages I got from it was not to put fear into people, but I need to do a video to get that information out because it's really important that and this is not to put fear into people, but it's, is to, one of the things that we need to do, I feel, is to prepare a grab bag where we can just pick it up and go. because that in any events that should or should occur, it's seconds or minutes will make a big difference.
Yes, yeah. I understand that, but I also understand as well that there are interventions taking place. These UFOs do exist. We are not alone, but aliens tend to have a habit of fence sitting. They tend to sit on the fence, come out with all these platitudes and virtual signaling, but tend to sometimes sit on the fence when they could have intervened. And they do have the technology to intervene, but they seem. But it really has been. How can I put it? In 40 years of dealing with all this, that's been one of the most, I think, disappointing things to witness. Actually, and of course, we've got to remember that this is the opinion of the guest, and not necessarily the opinion of myself or the radio station when it comes to that. But I think that time can be altered, Carol. I do think it can be altered and the future can be changed. The only thing I discovered with dealing with all that at a very paranormal and advanced level was if you change one situation, it manifests as something else. Save a man from throwing himself in front of a bus and down the street, another man falls off a bicycle in reaction to it. That was some of the most, we're getting into deep paranormal experiences here that I really haven't got time to discuss, but that's what I discovered. Did you discover any variants like that when you've been dealing with this on your spiritual journey? Any odd quirks like that?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I do agree with you with what you're saying. I think that it's cause and effect, isn't it?
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, it does have an effect. When we chuck a stone into the ocean, it can be felt on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
Because space and time is actually non-existent.
Oh, indeed.
Indeed. Yeah. So
yes, it certainly is, Carol. And I would suggest as well that there's probably, I would probably think if I'm gauging it right, and we'll probably do this for part 2. But if I'm gauging it right as well, I'm probably suggesting that you may have had kind of heightened time travel type experiences as well. Because the brain is decoding information entirely differently to other people. And it probably, I think when we close our eyes as our experiences, I'm sure listeners who are experiencers will agree, when we close our eyes, we see the world differently. Our thoughts are different to normal people. That's not the word. Probably to the general population. We live in a strange world. Is that the word I'm looking for, Carol?
Yeah, we do, and I totally get what you're saying. And I probably, like most of us, we are saying the same thing, and using different words, using our own vocabulary to describe the same things.
Yeah.
And I often just term us as being starseeds, having experiences, in 3D and on Earth. Sorry. Exactly.
Well, I'll tell you what, Carol. While we're on that subject, I will. 40 years of dealing with this, and you know my website and you know my material. I'm quite the out there guy about all this. But I ain't got a clue what a starseed is. What is a starseed? Don't tell anyone. That I don't know. I mean, me, Big Tone, the big man about all this paranormal stuff, and I don't even know what a bloody starseed is. I mean, what is one of them, Carol?
Well,
educate me.
To me, a starseed is someone who doesn't fit in, someone who doesn't come from here, someone who's had UFO experiences, someone who is a contactee, who is an abductee, who is a hybrid, who is a psychic, a medium, someone with abilities and or experiences and or spirituality that doesn't fit into the narrative of the bullshit that we're sorry, Tony, the BS that we're conditioned to believe.
Yes, because there is a set paradigm that is suspicious that moves in our society. I actually think our government need all the help it gets, actually, because we really are living in strange times. Listen, Carol, that's all we've got time for this evening. I'd like you back for a part 2 of this, because I think we've just not covered enough material, and I think we can go in depth again. I think you've been a wonderful guest, and it's been a really interesting show. Thank you for being my guest.
Thank you so much, Tony. I've really enjoyed it. It's been a pleasure. And I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And I would love to come back. I'd also love to have you on my show as well.
Oh yes, right. Okay, we can sort that out, Lovey. That's not a problem at all. We can certainly sort that out. But for the listeners, when we talk about Carol's talking about starseed. Now, for example, my friend who's a Christian, and I'm actually a closet Christian. But for example, my friend who's the Christian will talk about Jesus, and I'll refer to Jesus as a signal processor. I'll tell him that Jesus was a guy. I believe he was a real guy, and he was processing information at a different level to everybody else, hence all the hoo-ha around him and what went on. Carol calls it a starseed. What I'll say to your listeners, if you look up, it's interesting material, Rhea H. White, Exceptional Human Experiences. It really is a fascinating thing for you, the listener, to have a look at. And with that, I say thank you to my guest, Carol. It's been a great show, and we'll be back again next week with Alien Confidential. Bye-bye for now. Alien Confidential. The question is, are the Martians listening to this broadcast?